and recruiting coordinator here at Lehigh University. Prior to my time here, I played DB at Holy Cross for Tom Gilmore, who's now my head coach. Starting my coaching career, I got started a little late at 25. I started at the University of New Haven with a couple of you guys, and I owe so much to my development to those guys there, from Brian Viganic to Chris Newguy, and obviously Garrett and Coach Pence, who have played a huge role in my own development. I then went to Holy Cross, my alma mater, where I was the safeties coach and transitioned to be the running backs coach as well. I'll be honest, there I learned so much about football as a whole from my head coach, who I played for, to Bob Chesney, and then the special teams coordinator there at the time, Drew Kanan, is the best guy I've been around in a long time. He's an unbelievable person, and he's really shaped me to be who I am as a special teams coordinator. And now I'm at Lehigh University, and truth be told, while I am the special teams coordinator, it's not just me, right? It's an entire group that acts as one, and I think that's the coolest thing about this whole journey is, yeah, I might have the title. I certainly don't get the pay that comes along with it, but I definitely have a supporting cast around me that's more like starring roles. So without further ado, my best advice for anyone going forward is to take the good and bad from every single individual coach that you come across and keep them both in your back pocket. I think I've told some of you guys this. Take the good and use it. Take the bad and never use it. And I've done that, and you guys will see what it made me today, and understand that I'm not perfect, and I'm anxious to get this thing rolling. So I'm going to share my screen. Really fired up, to say the least, about the opportunity to be here. Garrett, I can't thank you enough. You're the man. Let's see this. G, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Appreciate it, Mario. I don't know if Garrett heard me. He's on mute. But so we go.
I give you a thumbs up, man.
What'd you say, G?
So I give you a thumbs up.
All right. I didn't see it here. But we're the hunt teams, right? And we talk about being predators each and every time. So we talk about all the little things that come along with the game, and special teams in particular. But our coaching philosophy as a whole, and this is from the top down, right? We're one voice. We're a direct reflection of our head football coach. And everything that he says stands, right? We'll never undermine the program and put someone else or ourselves on a pedestal or a particular part of the game, right? If there's a discussion that's meant to be had, it's meant to be had in the office, right? Not on the field. And again, I've learned that from my own wild days with previous coaches of going a little crazy. But to have one united voice is a major aspect of special teams, because as much as the head coach addresses everyone, we do probably more. We probably get to do it a little bit more. So we certainly embrace that piece of it. The next piece you see here, we're a group of 90, right? And each and every member of our team is held to the standard, and the standard which we'll talk about here later. But each and every individual player is going to get coached differently, because no two players are alike. They're not the same, and the passion has to be there regardless, but understand that you're coaching each and every cat differently. Impact and empower, right? Our passion for the game has to outweigh the small nuances, the little issues that we have, the fact that I got to run the scout team and put the cards together and have meetings with the scouts that are sometimes offensive linemen, which is pretty crazy to think about. We talk linemen on kick return and punt return. It's just the nature of being here, and it's not an excuse. It's something that we certainly embrace, and those guys obviously embrace it as well. But we can't turn it off ever, right? That's something we'll never do. The juice has to always be there, and I think Garrett is the perfect example of that, right? But we also have to understand that each and every communication that we have with any of our guys, we're going to either have a positive or a negative impact, right? Each and every time. So understand that, and understand the power that we have to empower those individuals by our individual message. And then lastly, just transparency. When you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, those kids know fake better than any individual person in the country, because of what they dealt with for the past let's say 2 or 3 years of getting recruited, right? By how this industry is. A lot of fake people, and they're pretty good in their jobs of analyzing people. But being transparent and honest is going to benefit the team and ultimately the program. And we're going to have to coach our players as hard as possible. That's just the general coaching philosophy. From a special teams and our hunt teams perspective, right, we talk and we start with controlling your inner ape, right? And I got this from Ron Rivera, and Ron Rivera actually copyrighted this. So if anyone knows Coach Rivera, don't tell him I stole this. But he copyrighted it, which is pretty crazy to think about. But your attitude, and all three of these things are 100% controllable. Your attitude, right? We want 11 savages on every single aspect of special teams, right? And we'll get into details about that. But we have to embrace the game and everything that it embodies, right? The drill work, the meetings, the taking of the notes, all that stuff are things that are driven by your attitude, right? Always have that enthusiastic smile to you, but also bring that attack mentality, because if you're pouting, your attitude is ultimately gonna affect someone else next to you negatively. The P, preparation, right? Be the best individual that you could possibly be. You see 1% better, and I know a lot of people use those cliched things there, but if you do get 1% better each and every time out, you're ultimately gonna strive to be the best individual that you could be, right? You never settle for anything less, and when things aren't going perfect, you adapt when necessary. And then this last one, like it says, effort, the E in APE is 100% controllable. You want it more than the unit we're preparing against. It's that simple, right? It's that simple, and it's certainly something that our guys have done a great job with over the last year, the last 18 months, coming in and having 46 players for spring ball was a challenge. And then we played last year with 77. It's a lot, but the guys embraced their roles. They embraced their roles, and we're going to be one of the youngest teams in the country. We'll have 63 freshmen or sophomores, which is pretty astonishing, out of a 90-man roster, which, again, we're going to benefit from greatly. I thought we had a really good couple of classes, and those three things are certainly the key pillars of our program as a whole, from the head coach down. He doesn't use inner ape, but he does use those in particular words and experience of life to generalize our program. Furthermore, here's savage, right? Savage is a brutal or vicious person. So we have this savage of the day during camp, and what it is I buy a Jason mask, right, or a Michael Myers mask, and or a Freddy Krueger claw, and each and every time out, the savage of the day gets exactly that, right? And we try to embrace that and give those guys an opportunity to see if we are given the role to do so. But from the next four attributes are certainly things that fit into that savage mentality that I'm going to allude to throughout this whole conversation. But compete, right? Competition's king. For those who have been around, the people that I've been around, my head coaches, from Chris Pence to Bob Chesney to Tom Gilmore, are some of the most competitive people I've ever met in my life. And because of it, they have been extremely successful as head coaches during their tenure and as offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, and so on. But it's certainly king. And I want our guys to compete with each other, compete with the opposing teams, compete with everything that they create, right? Everything that they control, and ultimately hold us accountable and hold us to that same competitive nature. From a physicality perspective, we're going to play with an aggressiveness that's going to put fear in the minds of our opponents, right? Predators never prey, right? We're predators, never prey. And that means, obviously, it goes with the mountain hawk theme, who are predatory animals. But the reality is we have to be in attack mode at all time. And there's nothing better than laying someone out on a Saturday afternoon and silencing the whole other side of the stadium. And that's what happens when you're physical. From an accountability perspective, this is a no-brainer, right? Know the roles, understand our scheme, and do your job. Play within the whistle. We don't have no penalties. We had one penalty last year. We were the least penalized team in the league. Again, Coach Gilmore is big on this, but no second chances, right? This has to be – the special teams have to be special. And I know, again, cliched and whatnot, but the special teams certainly have to be special, and we've embraced that whole ideology as a whole. And lastly, simplicity, right? Our scheme is not overly complicated. We're not looking to confuse anyone, but we will game plan to a degree that is going to make it problematic for our opponents, right? We'll attack certain individuals. We'll attack certain schemes and all that, but we're going to outwork and outwill all of our opponents, and that's really the gist of that from our perspective. Any questions on that? I know everyone has their own little thing, but that is certainly from the top down that we truly believe in. Awesome. So we're going to get into our punt return game, and we call it PBR, and I got this from Temple, and my brother is a quality control analyst there on offense. I met with their special teams coordinator. When Coach Gilmore came to me last year, he's like, "You want to be the special teams coordinator?" And truth be told, I was like, absolutely. I haven't been able to tell that guy no since he recruited me. So that's been a problem. But he came to me, and I was like, let's do it. So I embrace this aspect because of how important it is. You know, you guys know the stats. You block one punt, you win 78% of the game. You block two, I think it goes up to like 94%, which is freaking astonishing, to say the least. And those are things that I think we embrace as a team. We got 3 last year, and you guys will see when I throw the film on, we should have got a lot more. But again, that's my fault for not putting our guys in the correct positions to get it done. But our PBR as a whole, right? Alignment is the most important aspect of it, bar none. Right? If we're misaligned by half a yard, if we're misaligned by a quarter of a yard, it's going to dictate so many different things for our entire unit, right? We have to understand it, and we have to understand their formations and their schemes and what they could do. Our first goal is to really understand the punt unit as a whole from a PBR perspective. And PBR stands for punt, block, return. Like I said, I got that from Temple. Punt, make sure that thing's punted. If it's punted, we're going to get a chance to block that thing. If for some reason we don't block it, we're going to return that thing. Punt, block, return. Punt, not Coach Garrett's favorite drink, but PBR. From a scheme perspective, we got to know our scheme, right, fellas? We got to know our scheme, know our position and the positions around us. It takes a village to block a punt. Not one guy's going to do it. The entirety of the unit is going to block the punt. And you guys will see that when it happens a few times on film. Our responsibility, the scheme's designed to put the offense back on the field, period. At worst, that's what's going to happen. Our offense is going to be on the field with the best field position possible, right? Our responsibility to this team is simple, right? Do your job, plain and simple. No penalties, no fake punts, and take pride in what we do, right? You'll see the next aspect, keys and angles. We'll have keys and angles for each and every week. I know we got a couple of guys in our league in here that I didn't want to put our, scouting reports and things of that. But essentially, we're just trying to put our guys in a situation to block a punt or return a punt, and understanding certain positions on the field really allows us to do that. And our guys embrace it, having landmarks on for certain punt units and things of that we change each and every time. But reaction, right? PBR is fourth down. It's fourth down, and we have to understand that it's essentially the last defensive snap of a series. So for us, our guys are mostly made up of defensive guys. I think we had 10 out of 11 of our PBR guys were on defense. So pretty important down, as you guys know. But be aware of the little things, the punt adjustments, cadences, punter's depths. All this stuff is going to help with production, ultimately help us block a kick, like I keep alluding to. Understand that these are one-on-one situations 99% of the time. 99% you're going against one single individual in this unit in particular on the punt unit. But again, it's predator versus the prey. We want to be predators in this, and all of our matchups are essentially one-on-one. I think I watched Coach Lustig from Syracuse, and the way that they do matchups every week, I thought that was freaking awesome. We do something very similar, and we try to negate the top special teams performer in each aspect of the opposing team. But I'm going to definitely steal that and run with it without a doubt. But, again, I want the most 11 competitive caps on this particular unit, right, because of what's going to come about it. I can't reiterate enough. 74% of the time you block a punt, you're going to win the game. That's again, a ridiculous number. But lastly, discipline. We have to be sound. You see it up top. Our alignment is so important, but we have to be sound, and we're not going to give up a fake punt. We won't. We will not commit a penalty. We're not going to miss an assignment. We got to strive for perfection, and that's certainly what I do and what I expect from our guys. And we expect it from ourselves more so than anything else. It's fourth down, and it's the most important play of the game because it's the next one. Ultimately, if you trust yourself, everything else is going to fall right in line to everything that we believe in as a PBR unit. How to block a punt, right, guys? Everyone has their own little critiques and the way that they teach it and their own techniques. But for me, the most important aspect of this thing is the get off, right? It's imperative to have awareness, like I talked about, knowing the snap cadence, the long snapper's movements, whether he's nudging the ball or moving it a certain way. Our long snapper here does a phenomenal job of changing up, but more so he comes in on a Monday afternoon and we'll watch an opposing punt team and they'll say, "Hey, coach, you see that?" And I'll be like, "No, Dean, I ain't see shit." And he'll see it and he'll say, "No, the punter, the long snapper snaps his head for a quick second before." And those are the things that our guys are really in tune to. When we talk about the get off, we cannot have any false steps, right? And ultimately, we want to replace the punt opponent's foot with our own foot when they block down or block out. Someone's coming free, whether it's on the backside to the left or to the right, we have to understand that from a schematic perspective. Our pad level, another big part of it, right? We got to anticipate some type of contact, right? Always be balanced and always have a firm foot in the ground. The guys that work for Coach Ches, I mean, how many times have you heard firm foot, firm shoulder, firm foot, firm shoulder? And it's something that I've really embraced because it does mean so much in everything that we do, right? Having a firm foot in the ground with a firm shoulder. To embrace that contact sometimes, and we'll talk about embracing the contact with our claw technique, but our pad level creates a lower center of gravity than the opposition. That means good things for us. When we do get to that block point and understanding where that block point is, you see it there. We got big eyes and late hands. We got to see the ball off the punter's foot with our big eyes, right? And we're going to shoot our hands late, low, and big. Ideally, right, we want to create a diamond in crossing the index finger and the middle fingers and pushing the thumbs together and ultimately taking that thing off of the punter's foot like so, right? And we're going to shoot them hands, not slap at it. You'll see a couple drills here that I'm going to show that, again, a lot of you guys probably do. Where our guys are slapping at the ball. They're slapping at the ball, and in doing so, you're gonna miss the block. You're gonna miss the block, and you'll see us do that multiple times on a couple of these game tapes. But for the inside rushers, right? Again, know the block point. Know the block point. You'll never cross the punter, right? Always run through where you came from, which means when you're going through a certain gap, right, you want to remain on that beeline to the ball. Get skinny to the shield and throw that long arm to eclipse the punter's leg. So understand that we got a left foot and a right-footed punter each and every time out. Who is exactly punting? But again, it has to be one continuous motion when we rip under that shield and give the contact. You'll see when we do these drills, a lot of our guys are going to rip under and then they shoot the arm late, opposed to doing it all in one continuous motion. The outside rushers, you're going to, again, know the block point, but you're going to cross away from the punter's kicking leg. So if you're on the right and the punter's a right-footed punter, you're crossing, right? If he's a left-footed punter, you're going to stay same side, sometimes using a one-hand technique. But with a poor get-off, you're going to expect a scoop and score to set up our wall, right? Scoop and score to set up our wall. And like it says there, we're going to use the same technique in taking that thing off his foot unless we're there late, and then we just throw a late hand to ultimately set up our return. And last but not least, the scoop and score. You're going to circle the ball, right? You're going to circle the ball when that thing's on the ground. And the way that we do it, we create a pocket like a shortstop in baseball. We turn that back foot. We circle the ball, get our knuckles on the ground. Like most of you guys, never the knee over the ball. If your knee's over the ball, you're going to kick it forward, and obviously we don't want that. Scoop that thing and score it like we talked about. Any questions from that perspective, guys? Gee, I'm gonna share my screen, and we're gonna go into a little bit of drill work, and then into. Let me stop this share.
So I got a quick question on the outside rusher. So once he crosses away from the punter's kicking leg, if it's a right-hand punter, and then he comes around on the edge, so what do you mean by crossing away from the kicker?
So, yeah, if it's a right-footed punter, right? So we got a right-footed punter. That means that if I'm the right outside rusher, right? The right outside rusher, I'm going to cross body, because if I'm going that way, I'm not going to be able to stay same side and reach across his body to block that thing that way. And we don't want to – we're having two outside rushers, so we don't want those two to run into each other. I don't know if that answers it, but the best way I can I can't draw it up. It's a little hard. You'll see it when we do a little film. How's that?
Okay, great.
It'll help a lot better.
And then, if that's possible, if the one outside rusher blocks the kick and then crosses over, could that set up a return for a scoop and score?
Absolutely, and that's where it comes from. More often than not, the two outside rushers aren't both going to be free, right? Yep. One's going to be free, and the other one's going to get held up at the line of scrimmage. And when that individual is held up, he ultimately turns in to the scoop and score guy. If they're both coming off the edge free, the punt team's fucked up, right? The punt team's fucked up, and we're going to have two guys with free runs at an opportunity to block a kick, and we'll take that 100 out of 100 times. Right. They understand that one guy's crossing and one guy's staying the same side. So if I'm coming from the right, I'm going to cross. This guy on the left is going to stay the same side, and ultimately, like you said, scoop and score from that perspective.
Yep, that makes sense.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. Gee, I'm going to share my Exos here. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, we got it.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm going to keep it here. This usually works a little bit better. All right, so this is just our inside rushers drill. So what we do is we're on Coach Noonan's foot here. Again, we want most of our weight on that front foot, and we don't want false steps, right? We don't want false steps. And ultimately, when we're running through this, we're on the left side here as an inside rusher, and that inside rusher is going to give his back here to the shield. His back to the shield. And when he does that, he's going to rip his arm off. And then you see how he puts his arm back down there? That's not what we want. We want that one continuous motion and ultimately throw that arm as high as you can to eclipse the punter's right leg in this instance. Again, poor get off. You see the false step? Again, another false step with the back foot here. Again, you want that one continuous motion that you don't see from 34 here. But again, the two bags are ultimately replicating that shield and running through that single A gap. Here we go. 10's a little bit better just because he's a better athlete. We'll talk about who we want in those certain positions here soon, but it's a pretty good get off besides the false step. Love that he stick dips and rips, but again, he tucks his arm after he rips. After he rips, he tucks his arm and then shoots it late. That's taken away from all the momentum that he carried by dipping underneath the shield. He dips underneath the shield and does a great job of reducing contact, but then he dips that right arm instead of just using that, again, that one continuous motion to take it to eclipse that punter's foot. It's a good get off again. I love how he clipses the foot. What he wants to do here is show his back and then show it big arm, big hand, big arm, big hand. 95 here has a good get off and then he pops straight up. He pops straight up. We want to create that, again, that sprinter stance to ultimately create as much acceleration and force through the shield. Get skinny through there. Know what you're doing here. And it's a little better in ripping that arm through and using one continuous motion. But again, it's eclipsing that punter's right leg here. Here we go from the other side. It's a pretty good job by 20 here. It's good get off. Again, it's going to look better from a better athlete. Gets off, gets skinny through the two shieldmen. It takes the ball off the punter's left foot. Again, when he goes to make contact, I didn't allude to this earlier, but he goes to make contact here. You guys can see his right foot has a firm in the ground to embrace the contact from those shield guys. So he has a right firm in the ground, ready to reduce with that right shoulder. He's going to rip that right arm through and ultimately make that arm as long as possible. Again, I keep talking about it in one motion, eclipsing the punter's right leg. Just a little, another drill for timing. We're going to set two guys up. We usually bring two up the A-gaps in our scheme. Just timing that thing up without shield, just cones. Again, landmarks, knowing where we're going, stick dipping and ripping, and using one motion.
Hey, DiMichele, quick question for you, bro.
Yes, sir.
When you're doing that, are you putting your back to the middle shield?
We are, yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are. Yep, we are. We're putting our back to the middle shield. And I was always taught to put your belly to the ball as a defensive guy that's coming off the edge to block kicks, right? Belly to the ball. And then just after we talked about it as a staff, because we taught it that way, belly to the ball, Garrett, for the spring. And then we came back after a couple of visits to some places, and in reducing that shoulder, if you reduce, the shield member has less surface area with your back to them, and you're able to naturally rip that thing up, opposed to giving them your chest and then shooting that thing up later. Does that make sense? So it's more of a natural motion with the back and ripping underneath and ripping that arm through.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Here we go. This is last year versus Villanova. You'll see here, 87 is the A-gap rusher here, and he does a great job with his get-off. And he's physical, right? He gives his back to the shield. All he has to do is, again, use that one fluid motion, and you'll see it better from this angle. He's a tight end for us. It's a good get-off. Gets lower than the individual in front of him, which we love. Again, he's going to rip that. I'd love to see him throw that left shoulder in there, Garrett, right? That left shoulder, but he does it physical enough. If he just throws the one, right, in that one fluid motion, he takes this thing off his foot. He certainly does. On the other side of it, right, you see 94, just a little too soft, right? And he's soft and he's high. 94 is too soft and he's too high. But 87 is doing a great job of knocking this shield guy back into the wall, and he ultimately gets almost gets this one. Not schematic, but it's more so effort than anything else. You see his drive here, right? His first step's replacing right here. So he's going to make this shield reduce and hopefully give our 31 a quick beeline to take it off the punter's foot. It's a pretty good job by the individual on the outside there. Again, you see the two A-gap guys. You see 94, he has a good get off, but he slows down and he tries to finesse this thing, right? If he runs through this fucking thing, he might be the individual getting it. 87 does a good job here. Again, bull rushing the right shield here, but ultimately he has to give his back here just so he knows that he can block that thing with one arm, and that got to be taught from us more than anything else. It's not a scheme issue here, right? We're just sending six. He just got to get skinny through there, dip his shoulder, and ultimately, again, shadow the right leg of the punter. Shadow the right leg of the punter there. just a couple outside rushers drills. So we set up a cone again with someone where they're blocking down away from so that means they're punting right more than likely, right? So we're blocking down, and ultimately we want to replace the punt team's foot with our foot and our get off. Stay low. I mean, this is terrible. It's poor get off, no sense of urgency. And you see the slap, right? You see the slap at the end opposed to shooting his hands, right? We want to shoot our hands. And I heard a couple of you guys talk about the volleyballs, and the volleyballs are a great attribute for this drill in particular. Just seeing it, he does a great job of creating the diamond to some degree, but everything else is terrible here. It's a better job by 9, bending around the shield, getting skinny. But again, he too slaps at it, right? We don't want to slap at that thing. He creates the diamond, but he wants that ball to ultimately, he wants to catch the ball opposed to tapping at it, right? Tapping at it. Shoot those hands late. You can see his eyes transition down into the ball. He sees it, which is exactly what we want. I'd love for him, again, to give his back to the bag here and skin the cat. But in general, that's a solid rep. One of the big boys here on the outside. It's a good get off, good bend. You see him here eyeing that thing. You just never see him bring his hands together. See how there's room in between the two hands? That's a little problematic for the purpose of the drill. And again, that's our job to fix that. And he blocks a punt later in the year, and it should have been 6. Instead, it goes up through his hands again. But again, that's our job to correct that, and his job to understand everything that we got going on. But again, you see the get off is awesome. Replaces the punt guy's feet, bends around the shield, and ultimately takes it off the foot of the opponent. Like we talked about, this is all timing, and you see here, Will, right? This is it in a nutshell. So we got a right-footed punter here. Right? You got a right-footed punter. We know that the guy on the left is going to stay foot side, and this cat's going to cross. We don't want those two running into each other at the end of the day.
That actually makes sense to me.
Now that you see it?
Yep.
Awesome. So here, 27 was actually the special teams player of the year in the league. First team all-league guy, freshman, does a great job for us. You see here, he has a natural ability to, bend his body, but more so understand where the block point is. And again, all this is using cones for landmarks, and working particular technique. Here we go, 31 here. It's a pretty good job getting off, but he doesn't reduce this angle at all by replacing the punt guy's feet. And if he does so, he's going to get there a lot quicker. Obviously, this is a 2-step punt being backed up and max protecting, but there's no reason why he shouldn't take this thing off his foot. So we get this one. You'll see 29 right here is going to fight through a little bit of traffic. It's poor block technique, but the effort ultimately is the reason why he's successful here. Right? The effort's why he's ultimately successful here. Again, it's a left-footed punter, and with a left-footed punter, this is still an outside rush. So he's going to cross the punter's leg, and in doing so, we talk about shooting your hands low, not high, creating the diamond. He does none of that, but he ultimately gets the job done because his effort's extraordinary, and we'll see it from this angle here. 29 here. He gets a little bit, but his pad level's good. He gets a good get off. He's able to throw the right guard aside. Obviously, probably a scheme malfunction for the team in white here. But 29 does a great job. And if I showed you this picture 100 out of 100 times, he's going to take this thing off his foot. Instead, he has poor technique. And because of it, the ball's able to slip through his hands and get up in the air opposed to staying down and us getting 6 on it. Big play in the game, huge momentum changer. Here we go versus Bucknell. These guys do a a really good job on punt. They move around a lot. They do a lot of different things. I think we're schematically sound, and I think that's why our unit is able to do the things that we do. And these guys made that certainly challenging. But again, it's a two-man shield here, and you'll see 19 here does a good job getting off. Gets skinny around the right end here. And in doing so, he rips that elbow through, and he just never catches balance. Because if he catches balance, if I showed you this picture here, right, he's afraid to block it, ultimately, right? I mean, if I showed you that picture, it looks like he's afraid to block the punt, right? And we can't have that. When he's on the same side, we want him to understand that go take that thing, even if we got to reach with our right hand, stay same side because we got 31 coming cross body. He gets a little scared. And number one, I don't know if you guys know about number one. Number one was a three-time All-American punter. Does a great job for these guys, and I think he's in a camp somewhere. I'm not really sure about that, but he's a really good player for Bucknell. You'll see here 31 coming off the edge. You'll see this is one of his best reps. From a get off perspective, he gets off and then he slows down for whatever reason. I think 47 spooks him, but because of this, 87 is supposed to dip underneath 47's block here, and if he does so, he's going to reduce that angle for 31. So 87, if he comes underneath here, he got a beeline to the ball, but 31 does he does a great job. Like I said, the get off is great. He's tight. He's skinny, and then he slows down here for whatever reason instead of running through and blocking this punt. If I showed you this again, you guys see his hands are high. There's no diamond, and it's poor technique from us down. And I mean that sincerely, that we fucking didn't coach it good enough. I didn't coach it good enough. But you guys see that when you put it all together, there's opportunities to be had. Here we go here versus Lafayette. Again, we're going to come here. You'll see 31 coming off the edge here. 31's right here, and we'll watch it from the tight. We had a good beat on how they blocked this thing up, so we'd stay as tight as possible to these cats here. When there was two in the A-gap, we always knew that they were punting into the boundary, and this guy would block down. There's a ton of space here. So we lined up this guy here, and we moved him inside to ultimately take away that block, and 31 gets free here. And fucking, again, we talk about it. It's an outside rush. So we want to shoot our hands late, and he ultimately gets this one. But if I showed you guys this picture right now, you guys would be crazy to not think that we didn't get a piece of this, right? We do get a piece of it, but it still goes a good distance opposed to getting this thing blocked at the goal line and scooped and scored for a freaking touchdown, right? But again, it's all technique driven. It's a pretty good get off. I know there's a false step there, but the acceleration is there, and he gives his back to the individual that's blocking him, and he got no shot. He got no shot from a punt perspective. Any questions with that stuff, guys, before I got one more thing to go? G, I'm going to talk about the claw technique and how we block things up, and then I got that meeting at 4, if you're good with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Any questions on that stuff, guys?
Yeah, quick one. I don't know if you face any pro spread teams, but do you have any specific drills for that type? We're about half and half in our league.
We didn't play any. I mean, I think it's pretty crazy to think about, right? We didn't play any. But everything that I've learned, again, I've only been on special. This is only my second year doing special teams as a whole. So I got a lot to learn, and I love to be in meetings like this to learn. But everything I've ever learned when I played against them was grabbing and pulling to create room to go block more than anything else. And yeah, it is what it is. You might get called for it once out of every 1,000 times you do it, but that's ultimately where it stems from, is to dictate what they want to do and not allow them to do what they want to do. So grabbing and pulling and creating angles and seams that ultimately might not be there.
Got you.
Coach, versus on that Villanova film versus three-man shield teams. I noticed versus Villanova, they had, like 3 guys extended where you were hitting the gaps. Do you, versus three-man shield teams, do you dictate what gaps they're going to hit on the three-man shield?
We do, yes, we do. So depending on the block, so our base scheme, we'll send anywhere from 0 to 6 in our base scheme, any of them, right? And we do dictate exactly where we're going to hit on the shield. Everything that we do is based off the number of individuals in the shield, and everything stems off of that. But yeah, we certainly have aiming points, and that's a big piece of our scout work.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm going to share my screen again here, G. All right, guys. So the coolest thing that I think I've learned in this process the last, 15 months. I got here 18 months ago, and 3 months in, coach is like, hey, we got spring ball. You want to be the special teams coordinator? So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I had literally 3 weeks. I went and saw a couple of STCs. Coach Sabach at Temple is phenomenal, and he actually individual that showed me this claw technique. So what claw is it's a hold up technique that is very much so NFL driven, right? It's very much so NFL driven, and pretty much what it is holding. Hold up at the line of scrimmage, and it's grabbing as much cloth as you possibly can from behind the punt team's jersey, right? But alignment's big, right? We want to be in a 2-point sprinter stance. Our outside foot's always going to be up just so we're able to see the ball, right? Our outside foot's always up so that we can see the ball snap. And in seeing the ball snap, we're going to understand the shade of who we have and who's going to block us just from scouting and things of that nature. But we want to always show like we're coming. So that's where demeanor comes in. Rush demeanor every single time. Even if you're hold up, you want to anticipate every single time the punt team to block you. That's what you want, because without this, you can't use claw technique without someone coming to engage in you and block you, right? Ultimately, we use their momentum in blocking us to create a 2.5 second hold up is all we ask from our guys. So it's a little tough to explain without seeing it. I'll show a quick teach tape on it, but in embracing the punch, the hots that a lot of people incorporate into their punt protection, right? Their hots, we want to get their hands on our chest. Let's do it, right? That's what we want. You guys can put as many hands on my chest as you want, but in doing so, I'm going to come to balance, right? I'm going to come to balance with big arms. I can't really show you guys. Again, this is a little tougher, but I'm going to come to balance, right? Sit my ass down and create big circles to hug you ultimately. I want to hug you for as long as possible and grab the back of your jersey, not the shoulder pads, right? I want to grab the back of your jersey and hold you up for 2 seconds. And the way to do that is just to sink my hips, like it says, come to balance, big arm circles as big as you can to wrap around those shoulder pads and sink your ass down and ultimately play basketball for 2.5 seconds while grabbing on to the back of the individual's jersey. That's where the claw comes in, right? Having strong hands and ultimately staying square, right? Moving our feet laterally, never crossing over, right? The line ultimately, and that's what the drill that you guys are going to see. But we got to be disciplined enough that if we are beat, to let go, right? We can't hold, right? We can't hold. We don't want to get called for holding. We talked about no penalties. Just grabbing that thing, grabbing the back of the jersey and holding on for our dear life. And then if we are beat, get in the trail phase, right? We know where they're going. They're going to the returner. And ultimately, once we're there, we're going to wheel and seal, or we're going to scrape paint, which you guys have different views on. But I'm going to go ahead and change this thing up here just to talk about. Can you guys see my exos here?
Yep, you're good.
So you see here, this is just a win the line drill. So this is the first time we ever did it. I have a lot better film. So after this, maybe – hopefully we can get in the office here, but this is what I had on our road ready. But you see, we're going to take this angle. You see 12 here. 12 is going to allow the punt guy to get his hands on him. Without the punt guy, this is never going to work, right? Without the punt guy embracing us and putting his hands on our chest, what we're going to do is ultimately just play basketball, right? But with him putting his hands on his chest, he embraces us so that we can embrace him, hold him up at the line of scrimmage. You see 12 never brings his back foot with him. So when he gets punched here, he should plant his left foot in the ground and bring that right foot to balance so that he's even ultimately. And ultimately, all he has to do is sink his ass down. So sort of like what he does here. But you guys see the lower man's going to win here as well. 12 does a good job because he's stronger. But again, it's just sinking his hips. And now he's beat. Just let him go, get in the trail face. Let him go and get in the trail face. This is a pretty good job by 6 here. Coming to balance right here. And when you do come to balance, you're just able to move laterally a lot better, as you guys know, right? But again, it's grabbing that chunk of cloth behind the individual's shoulder pads and getting those numbers and just hanging on for dear life for 2.5 seconds. That's all we ask from these guys on hold up, and that's ultimately what you see here. That's a pretty good rep by 6. Ultimately just playing basketball and then getting in a great trail phase here and understanding that he's going to play that low hip. He's going to play that low hip. So number 30 here, you'll see him hit the right tackle here, essentially. And he does a great job from the beginning of embracing the contact from the punt team guy, right? And with the punt guy, he does a great job of wrapping his left arm. He never comes to square, which is tough. You don't see it from this angle, but you do see it a little bit just being a pest, right? He has his left arm behind him, and he's just being a pest all the way down the field. I have some other stuff that I could show you guys, but that's ultimately where we're going to end it, if you're good with that, G. Does anyone have any questions before I get out of here?
Yeah, I know you got to take off for that meeting. So, appreciate you being on, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was fun, man. Again, it's we're still learning. I'm learning from you guys, and I appreciate you guys being able to do this and really embracing this whole ideology. But this is my information. I'd love to talk more scheme with whoever, whenever you guys can. Certainly, I'm open to that. Again, there's a couple guys in our league that are on here that want to talk about our scheme and things of that nature. But the reality is, we do.
Oh, just do it, Anthony. Just talk about it. Just talk about the scheme.
Yeah.
You're waiting for an hour to hear some scheme. There's nothing here.
Yeah.
You got nothing.
You're the best. You're the
I'm
best.
kidding, man.
But,
Good job. Good job, man. Good.
Thanks.
Good job,
No, you guys are awesome, man. I'd love to, again, sit down with each and every one of you if that's possible. And I appreciate learning from all you guys. So, again, Poppy's awesome. I actually played for him, as crazy as that is. That's probably 10 years ago now. Fucking Poppy.
We don't have to give him a year. Don't tell him our age.
Yeah. Man, he's going to do a great job, man. And I appreciate you guys and would love to catch up with each and every one of you moving forward. So, G, thanks again for doing this. You're fucking the man. And looking forward to meeting you guys soon.